Imagine this. You're looking at your Steam library, trying to find a game to play during your Steam cleaning session in which you try to see the end of the various games you have bought during Steam sales. You stop onto a visual novel you bought years ago, look at it and say, hey, I wanted to play something relaxing, let's play this. Only to then come out of it 20 hours later so neutral, so indifferent, and at the same time so annoyed that you need to create a way too long video about a game no one has probably heard about just to let down the amount of frustration the game created in you, so to return being a sane human being and start to live again in the outside world. This is what happened to me with Wagamama High Spec. Good morning everyone, SigmaOni here and welcome. Today I'm here to talk about Wagamama High Spec, a visual novel developed by Madosoft and published in Japan in 2015, and then in the West by Seikei Project and Madosoft in 2017. In this visual novel we follow Narumi Kouki, a manga writer who is in the second year of high school, as he is pushed to enter the student council of his school by its president, Rokuonji Kaoruko, who is also the artist behind his manga and a huge fan of Kouki's work, and we follow his daily life together with the other girls of the student council. Now, let's immediately make a thing clear. This game is a moege, so a visual novel that focuses on cute girls, on romance, and not so much on drama or any resemblance of a story. Because of this, except for the roots, there is not any real plot in the game. It is just an episodic visual novel that aims to show the daily happenings of the student council. However, these types of games live and die by three things: the characters, the roots, and the events of the common root, though this last one is probably the weakest one between the three, as the common root is normally nothing more than a slideshow of events that need to establish the characters and throw them into some comedic situation. But it is also important because it shows for the first time to the player the writing standard of the game, an extremely important fact in a visual novel. So first, let's talk about the common root, and I have only one adjective to use to describe it, and that is generic. Really, the common root of this game is not that great. The events are the generic ones you can find in any other romance or moege anime or visual novel. They are literally cookie cutter and do not wander or try anything different from the norm. I'll give you some examples of what happens. They go to the pool, they go to the school's cultural festival, they threat over exams. Nothing really different in the slightest to any other high school romance visual novel, but this is the sword of Damocles that you put yourself under when you decide to make a rom-com set in high school. So this genericness is kind of a given when you make such a similar product. They also do not do that great of a job at introducing the characters, as the only characterization they get is done in their roots, except for one that comes to accept the protagonist's presence even before the start of her root, and in the common root they only need to act as comedic puppets for the writers and nothing more. Sure, some elements that are then faced in the roots are really lightly introduced here, but that serves absolutely nothing if you do not play their path, as they, in the common one, absolutely say nothing to the player. An example of this is the moment when the protagonist notices the piano in one of the characters' room and sees her discomfort with it. It is an extremely extemporary event that has no way whatsoever if not in that specific character's root. Also, another thing that does not help the events of the common root is the comedy. Now, as I always say, comedy is highly subjective, thus it is not possible to objectively talk about it, so take whatever I'm going to say with another pinch of salt added to the one you should already have naturally when listening to this video. Having solved this, the comedy is just not good. This game falls into the trap in which many other visual novels have fallen, of having its main comedy be the female characters berating on the main protagonist for the whole duration of the visual novel. A bit of it is fine, teasing is always something interesting to read, especially if there is chemistry between the characters, but there is a fine line between the right amount of teasing and deciding to completely surpass it while driving an excavator that had its engines walk with a Formula 1 car driven by freaking Takagi-san. Seriously, sometimes you see the protagonist being literally pushed around by all the other characters without doing anything to avoid it other than whining and sighing, which can be pretty frustrating to look at and not that much entertaining. Apart from this, the comedy is the standard anime one that is old of like 20 or more so years, so if you like it, you'll probably enjoy it, but if you do not, this comedy is going to miss every single time with you. Because of this, the common route ends up really feeling like a slideshow of mediocre events with an even more mediocre comedy. As for the writing, we are going to talk about it later on, when we arrive at the roots, so not to repeat more times than necessary the same things. So, apart from this, we have two other deal breakers we have to talk about, the charters and the roots. In order to contextualize the roots, let's talk about the charters first. First of all, they are mainly archetypical, and you can really sum them up by just naming the archetype they belong to, but it is only right that we analyze them a bit more in depth than that. To start it off, we have Kouki, the MC, which is just a self-insert protagonist with the normal characteristics of one. He goes with the flow, loves writing, loves his sister, can cook, helps the people around him when they need him, and he is, most importantly, dense as fuck. Then we have the four main heroines of the story. We have Rokuonji Kaoruko, the student council president and illustrator of Kouki's manga, a childish and hair-red charter that is also a bit of a pervert when she wants to. She is technically a noble, likes the protagonist a bit too much, especially for what concerns its work, and likes to make jokes and wordplays. Then we have Sakuragi Ashe, a tsundere that loves Kaoruko a bit too much, dislikes the protagonist, eats a lot, and gets a bit of characterization in her route that salvages her a bit. But she is still just a normal tsundere in her heart. She even has the iconic pigtails that once were a symptom of being one. Then we have Miya's Mihiro, Kouki's sort of childhood friend and the best friend of his sister, and hair-red and annoying charter who constantly calls the protagonist senpai, and because she is not Rize, she does not get a pass for this. Loves cooking, loves the protagonist a bit too much and shows this by constantly teasing him, is loved by animals, so much so that they naturally go to her whenever she is in their proximity, and she is a bit of a weirdo. Finally, we have Narumi Toa, Kouki's sister, a kudere who is extremely lazy, is a programmer, a gamer, watches anime, is extremely sadistic towards her brother while also liking him, and has an unnatural love for potatoes. As I have said before, during the common route these charters are not that well developed, if not for Ashe, who comes to accept the protagonist's presence in the council, and their further characterization is left to their roots. For that does more misses than hits, and in order not to spoil anything, I'm going to just leave it at that and say that even the roots do not do that great of a job developing the characters. Also, they're a bit too much childish, no sane high school student would act like them in many instances. It makes it feel like the writers didn't actually know how youngsters really behave, or better, like they had an ideal image in their mind cultivated by too much idealistic content, and thought that that was the reality and depicted it without any second thought.
じゃあしおり、本当にまん丸なもの見たことないの？そういうことになる。丸って何なんだろう?
Oh, you've gotta be kidding me.
Not that visual novels need to be realistic, they're still anime products in the end, but really, there are some moments where you're going to look at these characters and ask in your mind why the hell are they acting like middle schoolers. When I would like to discuss more about the main characters, really, I think I've said everything I could say. They are extremely generic, not that greatly developed, and leave nothing behind them. You are going to forget them as soon as you finish the game or just close it for the day. If these are the main characters, well, the expectations for the secondary characters the game has can be rightly deemed low, and to be fair, some of them are actually not that bad, but generally, they're used more as plot devices or comedic characters rather than anything else. Quickly talking about them, we have Watanuki Karen, the class representative of Kouki's class, an outgoing and cute girl who likes to joke around, is part of the drama club, and is the best wingman the protagonist could ever ask for. Then we have Sarukawa Kinjiro, the classic eroge player, and I'm going to leave it at that, as he is literally only useful as a joke punching bag and as a creep. Then Ikari Masato, an intelligent and athletic guy who is popular with the girls, but only likes girls like Yuka from Blue Archive and, again, is used only as a comedic character. Then we have Sato Kotaro, a guy that looks like a girl, likes to sew and wants to make male friends. I think that you can understand what they were going for here without me spanning it out for you. Iwakuwa Yukari, an ex-delinquent who is now the homeroom and social studies teacher of the protagonist class, a violent girl who deems herself as unladylike and is worried of never finding a man worthy of her. And finally, Takatsuka Chitose, the protagonist editor, a colorblind woman who cares a bit about the protagonist and his work. Now, these characters are mainly used as comedic reliefs and nothing more, except for some, especially the female characters such as Karen, Yukari or Chitose, who are used as plot devices in some routes. Also, because some of them have effectively a big enough quantity of screen time, especially Karen, it is kind of strange that they did not receive a root. Sure, both Yukari, Karen and Chitose got a root in the fan disc, but I think it could have been better if the original game had them, or at least, if it had the Karen root, as she is the most fleshed out character between the secondary ones. I think they could have done a branching point in the route she is used as a wingman to actually make it so that you had the opportunity to choose a route, but alas, this did not happen. Still, this is not a negative thing, just something that could have been added to add value to the game. Anyways, this was all for the characters, so now it is time to talk about the routes, and here I am going to make two sections. A spoiler-free one, where I'm going to talk generally about them without giving too many details, and a spoiler one, where I'm going to discuss each route in detail and which is aimed at those people that have already played the game, and at those that actually do not care about playing it and just want to know what happens. Don't worry, there will be a spoiler warning when we'll start entering that part, so that if you don't want to have any spoilers, you can skip that part and move to the next one of this video. Before starting, know that you access a route by having enough points with a character, something that is given by a set of choices that happen during the common route. There are not that many, and do not give you any feedback about whether your choice actually raised your affinity with one of the heroines. Also, there is no set order for the routes, you can play them in whichever order you want, you're not going to miss context by playing a route before another one. In any case, the routes are not that great. And there is one culprit I want to highlight for that, and that is the writing. Unfortunately, this game has a writing that ranges from mediocre to downright appalling, and just to let you know, this game costs €39 on Steam. I have seen 3 visual novels that are written miles better than this one. Still, what do I mean with the writing is bad? Do you mean that the translation is not good? Well, in some moments it effectively is not the greatest thing ever, but that is not the problem here. The big issue here is that the writing is downright plain at best and boring at worst, and also, it is extremely confusing at times. Many times the interactions will feel a bit forced, or even worse, the events will make no logical sense whatsoever, and the writing absolutely helps into making them even more illogical than what they already are. This is especially a problem in some routes, as, during the common part of the story, the writing is just plain, but never really that bad. However, in the routes this changes, especially for one, where it really feels like the writer was high as heck when he wrote it, as it really doesn't make that much sense, but even the others have moments where the writing goes to the bar, gets smashed, and wakes up with a random manuscript near it that, without asking any questions, it just inserts into the game.
I did not hit her. It's not true. It's bullshit. I did not hit her. I did not. Oh, hi, Mark.
Another big problem, but I don't know whether this is a personal interpretation or not, is that the writing just feels soulless. Like, even the writers did not care at all about the events and just wrote them because the company was paying them for doing that, and not because they wanted to do it. This, united with it being extremely plain, renders it extremely forgettable, as in, you will quickly skim through it for how uninteresting it ends up being in certain moments. Also, it is extremely cliched, which goes end to end with it being kind of soulless, and, I'll be honest, at this point is a given for moege and such. The day that someone tries to actually do something out of the ordinary in a moege, it will receive 90 minutes of applauses from myself. Still, because it is composed of cliches, unless this is the first time you see particular events or dialogues, you will just skip them and easily fill the voids with your head for how generic they are. In the end, the writing is your standard average eroge one, but even more soulless than the generic one, which is not a good point in favor of Wagamama High Spec. Now, effectively returning to the roots, I have to say that they indeed reflect the title of the game. If you didn't know, Wagamama is the Japanese word for egoistic, thus the title can be translated as something like egoistic and hard to handle girls, or, following what Jisho gives me as an interpretation of our high spec, egoistic and highly competitive on the dating scene girls. Depending on the definition you want to give to high spec, you can interpret the title in these two ways. Both are technically correct, as during their roots we are going to see the girls act egoistically in a way or another, and indeed being hard to handle sometimes, while also being constantly seen as out of the protagonist's league, and also with each of them being talented at something. For Kaoruko it is drawing, for Mihiro is cooking, for Toa is programming, and for Ashe I can't say because it would be considered a spoiler. Still, even if the roots effectively adhere to the game's title, that does not mean that this makes them automatically good. In fact, I will say that the majority of them are actually not that great as a story, also because all of them follow the same exact formula. Normally what happens in a root is, you have a period in which the protagonist and the girl of the root start getting closer and developing feelings for each other. Then there is always a big event after which the two become a couple, some lovey-dovey moments between the two of them, then some drama happens, they have to deal with it, and after they do it, all ends well, and congratulations, you have finished the root. The fact that all the roots follow this exact formula is a sign of low creativity from the writing team. Really, they do not try to stay from this path in any of the roots, which would have not been that hard. I can literally think about an alternation of each root in like less than 5 minutes. This is also why I say the writing is soulless and generic, because it seems like they did everything according to a manual and didn't try to move away from it. A bit like a student that is studying for an exam and ignores the parts that are not going to be in it, even though they are extremely interesting. Also, there is a big problem with regards to the roots, and that is the drama. I'll be honest, the 4 dramas that happen in the 4 roots of this game are really badly written and never actually developed or expanded upon, as the drama is just thrown in there to actually make a bit of noise, but nothing more. There is only one drama I think could have been interesting, the one that is shown in Ashe's root, but it is dealt with so badly and without any depth that the only reaction that got out of me was a cold stare and a sardonic laugh followed by a "you didn't really do it" when it actually happened. In general, without giving spoilers, the drama in Mihiro's root is a nothing burger and doesn't respect the player's time for how stupid it is. The Kaoruko's one is extremely badly written and also kind of stupid for how it is approached. The Ashe's one, again, could have been interesting but got totally destroyed by an extremely appalling writing, and Toa's one is... Actually, the idea behind it is decent, but again, the writing is not exactly good enough to actually get anything interesting out of it. Another thing to note is that everything ends up on a peaceful note every single time, which, okay, is a given for a moege, but if insert drama, at that point you could actually commit to a bitter ending here and there, instead of resolving everything in Pantarei style, so this is probably me expecting something different from a generic moege, a capital sin for sure. Also, another problem that is connected to the writing is the pacing of the events, which is way too quick. You get some roots where in a matter of few in-game days and of 30 minutes of reading, Kouki and the chosen girl pass from being friends to passing all day in bed while declaring their love for each other. I don't want to say that you need to make a slow story where the guy and the girl realize their feelings for each other in a realistic manner, but I also think that this pacing is too quick for its own good. And to add more problems to the already extensive list that I have exposed, the endings are also not that great, simply because they are not really epilogues to the roots, but more of a random glimpse in the future of the couple, and not even always, as some literally happen like 5 minutes or a day after the roots events, and some happen months or years later without any consistency. Also, this game doesn't understand what credit rolls are, as they are shown 2 times, one after the root's last event, and one after the final epilogue, which, mate, the concept of credit rolls is not that hard to grasp, and one thing that surely everyone will agree on is that having multiple credit rolls before the real ending is unnecessary and annoying. However, while I am being extremely negative towards the roots, there is to say that they do one thing right, and that is the romantic events and also the build-up for certain scenes. I think that this visual novel actually excels at them, which is strange considering how much the writing is appalling, but they indeed work and make you care a bit for what is happening on screen, no matter what route are you on. I think this is the only good thing the writing does, but I also have to say that it effectively does a good job at it, which makes me ask why did they deem necessary to add the drama part, and why didn't they just go full lovey-dovey and cheesy mode? I think it would have made the game better by acknowledging what it was, and that is just a moege without an important plot. And it would have made also the roots a bit better, as, again, the only high moments in BAM are the romantic scenes. Anyways, this was all for the spoiler-free section of the roots. Now we are going to be talking about them in more detail, so if you want to remain spoiler-free, jump to the timestamp you are seeing on screen. For all the others, well, it's time to deconstruct a bit of what these roots actually are. Now, I could talk about every story in detail, but, well, the majority of it are the initial events and their lovey-dovey counterpart, so I'm mainly going to talk about the drama of each root and about how the couple of the roots ends up together. Anyways, I would actually like to start with the only root that I actually enjoyed a bit, and that is the Ashe's root. Now, this is a two-faced root. From one side, the one initial part, so the events that happen before the drama, are actually decent, but the whole drama part is also one of the worst development this game has to offer, and will live in my dreams as how to mess up a potentially good route. Anyways, at the start we get a bit of backstory about Ashe. Her mother is a famous pianist, and her father was a violinist that ended up becoming her manager. Since when she was little, Ashe started playing the piano, hoping that her mother would, one day, praise her, but instead, she tells her to stop playing because, from her point of view, she has no talent and, because of this, her father diverts her to musical composition, saying that she needs to acquire sensibility by just living out in the world. Then there is a big part about Ashe saying that she has no talent, while everyone else around her has it, and Kouki telling her that those with talent attract other talented people. Then Karen, one of the secondary characters, if you do not remember her, needs the council's help for the drama club's next show, as the screenwriter is unable to write a script for them. Kouki ends up writing the script, and Ashe also joins by doing the music for the show, and this is where my Karen is the best wingman comment from before comes from. She understands that Ashe is in love with Kouki, and pushes her into passing more time with him by manipulating her tsundere side. By the way, the script the MC has to write is based on Night on the Galactic Railroad, an incomplete novel written by Kenji Miyazawa around 1927, and which is also a somewhat good representation of Ashe's relationship with her mother, but maybe this is just me trying to find meaning between meaningless things, also because anime writers seem to have an insane love for this work, as it appears frequently at random in many products belonging to the sphere. Anyways, Kouki and Ashe then pass some time together because of this. Ashe starts realizing that she's in love with the protagonist, and we also get to know some of the protagonist's backstory about why he and Toa live alone. I'll be honest, I did not expect that. Anyways, later on one of the lead actors gets injured and Ashe offers to substitute her, but when the day of the show arrives, after her performance she collapses as she did not eat that much during the week preceding the piece. Kouki brings her home, looks after her, and then they both declare their love for each other, they become a couple, go out on dates, and assist to the slow and classic transformation of Ashe from a tsundere into a deredere. This, until Ashe's mother returns to Japan, seeking to make Ashe transfer to Vienna to develop her musical composition skills, as she actually recognizes that Ashe has a talent for that. This, by the way, is the drama of the story, as then Ashe does an asshole move and pushes this decision onto Kouki, who, feeling inadequate to stand by Ashe's side, tells her to go. Ashe then proceeds to cut every single tie with him. Kouki overworks himself to forget about her, but cannot, and falls into a bit of a depression cycle. Everyone around him gives him shit for his reason to let her go to Vienna, but they also support him into going to get Ashe back. Toa breaks I don't know how many laws by tracking her GPS. Kouki then goes to Vienna, finds Ashe, and after giving her a manga that contains the story of their relationship, tells her he loves her. Ashe then proceeds to stop being a tsundere, and also admits of having been egoistical, and then the two of them proceed to become a couple again, though the MC has to return to Japan, and Ashe has to stay in Vienna. This route ends with the MC promising to come to Vienna after he has finished high school, so something like a year and a half from when the story ends, and Ashe becomes a deredere again, and also, forget about English, we have a new contender for butchered foreign languages, and I present to you Doitsu. Now, I have said that the first part is better than the second one, and that is because A. The game actually gives us meaningful info, B. Because Ashe and Kouki have a bit of chemistry, being the representation of the enemies to lovers trope, and C. because Ashe has a moege value that borders on infinite. Still, this is one of the cases where the pacing of the relationship development is a bit wonky, as it is a bit too fast. It's strange to think that Ashe can get over her hate for Kouki and turn it into love in the space of a few days. Also, a thing I appreciated was the fact that the other chatters did not disappear, but instead acted as supporters for Ashe and Kouki's relationship, which is something that really happens in moege. Many times, in these types of visual novels, the other girls almost disappear in the roots that are not theirs. Still, the drama is extremely stupid. First of all because, while I can understand the train of thought that went into it, the decision to delegate the choice to Kouki is extremely stupid as, well, typically you don't really want to have other people determine your future, especially when you have a choice. Also because you are effectively burdening someone else with the weight of a choice that should be only yours. And then the subsequent cold shoulder that Ashe gives him is even more inexplicable for various reasons, but also because of how it is resolved in the ending, as they end up in a long distance relationship, something they could have easily done from the start. This drama really feels like a nothing burger in the end, because it could have been avoided by simply saying, I don't want to lose you, so what do you think about a long distance relationship? And simply by talking. A thing I hate in drama that takes place in rom-coms is how people seem to be unable to talk to each other about problems. Seriously, if you care about the other person, why not just brainstorm the problem together and see if you can find a solution? Is it that much to ask?
Why drag this out? Why not just try to sit down with her and actually communicate like a fucking grown-up and explain everything to her? This evil plot could have been an email!
The fact that Ashe immediately drops Kouki when he tells her to go and pursue her dreams is also incredibly stupid and makes the whole drama, again, look extremely childish and immature. Though maybe this last one is because I am not the target audience for these kinds of visual novels, but who knows. Also, the world Vienna transfer comes out of nowhere. It is never properly built, but it appears like a shooting star only to bring drama with it, which, I don't know. If from one side things like this can happen, from the other one it feels too thrown out at random, like if they had to respect a precise chain of events that needed to happen and thus threw in the first drama they thought about. You could argue that, technically, it was constructed with the whole Ashe's backstory, but still, her mother comes out of nowhere and immediately asks her to come to Vienna when, just months before, she said she had no talent for the piano, and even admits having thought she had no talent for music composition either, and that she thought her father introduced it to her to alleviate her pain of not having talent in playing the piano. Which, by the way, really a thing to think about your child, or in general about anyone for what it matters. So I don't know how much you can say was properly built, and how much can you say were just the writers going step by step, writing what they had in their minds at that precise moment. Again, I think the best direction this route could have gone would have been the one where Ashe and Kouki talk about the relationship, try to understand whether they value more it or their dreams, mature, and discover something new about themselves and try to find a solution to this problem. It would have been a good maturing moment for both characters, who, as all the cast of this game, act extremely childishly in some moments, and also a serious moment where you can actually show how different people can have different values and desires, and now being in a relationship constitutes also the finding of a middle ground on these values between the people that are part of it. Instead, we got this extremely childish development that could have literally been resolved by a single discussion. Thanks again for making me waste some hours of my life onto this bullshit.
This evil plot could have been an email!
Anyways, next we have To's route, which is pretty mediocre, but in the sea of not stellar quality of Wagamama High Spec, actually comes out as the other interesting route of the whole game, as the drama is not that preponderant and the game embraces its more low-stakes atmosphere. That is if not, for the fact that she is Kouki's sister. If you're uncomfortable with, well, Rainbow style conclusions, I suggest you skip this part. Otherwise, let me tell you a bit what happens here. So, in this route, we first get a bit of background about the MC and Toa's family, though this is not that much important, if not to justify the strong bond that exists between them, and to explain why they do know Mihiro, as basically their mother married with another man. However, as she is famous, she always stated publicly that she hadn't any child, while she indeed has two. And this brought Toa and Kouki to resent her and their stepfather, and at a certain point, Toa and Kouki decided to live alone and to cut ties with her family, with Phil letting them do it without any problems, and at first, they lived and worked at Mihiro's place until Toa made money with some mobile app and the siblings got to have their own house. Then we have a whole arc where Kouki's editor asks him to make a character arc in his manga about inserting the little sister into the romantic harem of the protagonist, so he starts the important anthropologic study that is the history of the appeal of Imoto in manga and anime. However, because of this, Toa starts thinking that he is in love with her when, in reality, she is the one in love with him, though she doesn't really know, she just knows she feels something for him, but not that it is love. Later on, as Kouki needs more material to understand the appeal of Imoto, and no, this is not me paraphrasing what happens, it is the real justification the game gives, he goes on a date with Toa, which, however, doesn't help him. Then Kaoruko offers to go on a date with him and to act as his little sister, and during this fake date, Toa is stalking them constantly wearing an expression that will kill a dead person, and there she discovers that she harbors feelings for Kouki. The date with Kaoruko makes Dempsey understand that Toa is his perfect little sister, and thus, he asks her to go on another date, and at the end of it, he confesses to her and they become a couple, and, well, basically everyone accepts that without making any fuss over the obvious pre-existing relationship between them. Except for Mihiro, who tells them they can marry, only to offer to be Kouki's mistress to cover their relationship. I don't... Why am I talking about this? Anyways, they act like a couple, and meanwhile, Kouki's Imoto arc in the manga is selling like crazy, and the company asks him for a spin-off, and they offer him the possibility of making a drama CD and an anime. So he focuses solely on these ideas, and thus fails his exams and slowly overworks himself until he collapses on the street. When he regains strength, he is asked by the editor whether he wants to move his manga from a weekly magazine to a monthly one, which apparently is considered a downgrade, and to stop any other side project, so the protagonist restarts working on the manga, practically overworking himself again, and there starts a feeble drama about him wanting to stop writing because he feels unable to do so and because he feels like he has lost any motivation he had for doing so, aka he is a normal writer when he has writer's block, understandable, yet not enough to actually warrant any real drama. Anyways, Toa gets worried about him, summons the council, and asks help, and what it boils down to is her writing a letter about the importance of Kouki's stories for her, which Kouki reads thanks to his editor, and then the whole thing ends on an extremely peaceful note. I'll be honest, there is not that much to talk about here. The drama is not that important nor takes up that much time, for it actually serves a bit of purpose, which is to reignite Kouki's love for writing by making him remember for who he actually started to do so. Still, again, the pacing is too fast. Toa and Kouki get together after literally a day, after which they both understood their feelings for each other, or at least after which Toa has understood their feelings. Another obvious thing that is a bit out of place is the reaction of all the other girls to their relationship. I have high doubts that, you are going to shrug when a friend of yours says that he or she is committing an oremo momento, which is exactly what all the characters of this visual novel do. Sure, anime has done some strange things and, well, anime logic, am I right? But if you are not okay with that, well, you are going to have a lot of problems with this route. Still, this path actually does a thing that is barely done in the other ones, which is character development. Toa effectively evolves a little during this route, and if at the start she is just a lazy girl, in the end she starts helping Kouki and supporting him at the best of her capabilities. Not the greatest character development ever, but hey, always try to find the positives in the negative, no? Also, another thing I want to say is that defining this as Toa's route can be a bit misleading, because the main focus of this route is not her, but Kouki, as in reality, I think Toa doesn't even have that much screen time in the second part of the route, whereas Kouki is the real protagonist of it, which kind of makes me scratch my head as, well, it is strange that you try to give more space to a generic self-insert protagonist rather than to the goal of the route. So, in a few words, It would be more correct to call Toa's route the siblings route, as they both get the focus of the story, which, again, weird choice of design, but at least it doesn't take away that much from the few enjoyments this route can give you. And yeah, apart from this there is not that much to add. This is more of a romance route, and as the game does its best when it goes full cheesy mode, well, this makes this route bearable. Nothing extraordinary and surely not a sufficient route, but it is at least mediocre and not downright bad. Which is not something I can say about the other two routes we have to talk about, so the Kaoruko and the Mihiro routes. Now, these two routes have various big problems, which are the drama for Mihiro's route and, well, everything for Kaoruko's one. So, because of this, let's first talk about the Mihiro one, as if the drama had been totally cancelled or altered, then it would have been still mediocre, but better than what it ended up being. So, in this route, Kouki starts working again at Mihiro's restaurant, and slowly, as they pass more time alone and after some moments where Mihiro felt jealousy towards the fact that everyone in the council seems to like Kouki, she understands that she is in love with him. She then talks to Toa, works as her wingman, and after some embarrassing moments for Mihiro in which she tries to appeal to the MC, which include a moment where the council gang goes to the school at night after having heard some rumors about ghosts being there, and here she almost kisses him before being interrupted by Toa herself. After that moment, Yancy understands he also loves Mihiro, however, after that, she goes working away for a week, and when she returns, Yancy declares to her and they become a couple. A phrase I hope not to write for a bit of time after this review, for how many times I've had to say it. Then, again, you have some cheesy moments, some teasing by the other characters, and then Kouki decides to narrate the Miyase, Mihiro's family restaurant, a request that was already made to him by Mihiro's parents, after having concluded that he wants to think about Mihiro first. Then we start the drama arc of this route, and that is the closing down of the restaurant. Where do I start? Don't worry, it was a rhetorical question. I already know where I want to start. This whole thing is a huge misunderstanding. Basically, Mihiro overheard her father talking about closing the store, asks him if what she heard is true, and he says it is. However, the important thing he did not include in this statement is that, yes, the shop is closing down, but only because they are moving to another place. So, basically, the whole ordeal about the shop closing down for good is a nothing burger, and, practically, everything that Mihiro and the MC do loses any meaning, as, when they overhear this, the two decide to make the Miyase great again and participate in a rice bowl competition, and there are various events where they try to come up with the best rice bowl that conjugates the concept of a rice bowl with Western cuisine. And all of this is for note as, of course, they win the competition, pretty standard event for these types of storylines where there are no real stakes at risk, then discover the truth, and laugh it off. Are you hearing my laugh? Are you hearing me laughing from the joy of hearing that I wasted hours reading events that were ultimately meaningless because of a simple misunderstanding? I don't even want to waste time on telling you the few events that happen in this storyline because, ultimately, it is pointless and, as it is the major portion of this route, renders it, in the end, useless to read. I'll be honest, they did Mihiro dirty with this route for various reasons. First of all, this is not Mihiro's route, but this is her cooking's route, as the only thing the game effectively focuses on is her love for cooking and not her as a character. You could literally switch her place with someone else and it would still work. Mihiro is not needed for this route, only her love for cooking is. Secondly, well, Mihiro and the MC's relationship seems kind of toxic. You have an extremely needy and a bit too much attached girlfriend in the figure of Mihiro without any conception of personal space, who basically overbursts the MC every single time, as he is only a cardboard figure made to accept every whim of the other characters in the story, and by the end of it, they are already talking about marriage and living together like they did not get together like a week before. The only positive thing I found in this route, apart from the banter between Mihiro and Kouki when they try not to be extremely overbearing of each other, is the frequent change of perspectives that is done at the start, as you switch point of view various times between Kouki and Mihiro, assisting at Mihiro's realization that she has indeed fallen in love with the MC by seeing it through her eyes and thoughts, which is a thing that is technically done in every route, but that I also think is done at best in this one here. However, this is the only positive thing I can say about this route. For what concerns the rest, it is an absolutely despicable route for how it wastes the player's time and for how uninterested it is in its charters, as not Kouki nor Mihiro are the real protagonists of this route, but only the ancient art of cooking is, which, okay, it is cool, but it is also not the motive why I am playing Wagamama High Spec. You can, however, say that this last thing is done in practically every route except the Toaz one, where, however, there is still a bit of focus on Kouki's talent for writing. This is because, indeed, in Ashe's route we focus a bit on music, and in Kaoruko's one we focus on her love for drawing manga. But the big difference between these routes and Mihiro's one is that in the first ones, the passion of the main character is a secondary subject of the route and the fil de rouge that lies under the events, while in Mihiro's one, the characters are the fil rouge and the main character's talent is the one that takes the spotlight. Anyways, I don't want to waste any more time talking about this route because, unlike Wagamama High Spec, I at least try to respect your time as a viewer, says the one that has made a way too long video about a generic visual novel trademark. So let's focus on the last route, the Kaoruko one, who has just one big problem. The entire route's writing. I swear, I think the writer was high when he wrote this route, because some events make no logical sense, especially the drama, and also because the writing is all over the place. Really, it seems that this route was written by someone that has no idea how to write proper dialogues. Their flow is really awkward and, well, they are really badly written. Really, they make no sense, which I don't know whether it is a translation problem, or whether the original text is also like this, though I am inclined to propend for this second option, simply because the writing behaves pretty similarly throughout the whole game, with this route being the outlier for how badly it is written. As for the events, I'll be honest, they are pretty generic, so much so, in fact, that when I looked at my notes for this part of the game, they just recited one word, which is, indeed, generic. The development is the same as the other routes, with some misunderstandings, aka Kaoruko thinking that Kouki likes Ashe, a bit of background on Kaoruko, then Kaoruko understanding her feelings, Kouki also doing the same thing, then declaring to each other and becoming a couple, cheesy moments together, drama, resolution of it, and happy ending. So, because everything is generic, let's focus on the drama, and that is because I can finally use this clip I had in store for a while.
Non ho capito!
Well, the drama of this route is not of easy comprehension, and that is because of how it is laid out. So, basically, what happens is that an important author wants to work with Kaoruko, aka Mr. Deer, but she refuses because she only wants to work with Kouki, aka Potato Salad. Yes, that is the most stupid name I've ever seen for a manga author. However, basically, when she wants to reject the offer, other authors hear of this and they get pissed, saying that it is unfair to them that someone has a preferential treatment just because they sell more, and also because they want to have the opportunity to work with Mr. Deer themselves. So what happens is basically that the company makes an internal contest where whoever wins is going to work with Kaoruko for a manga, which pushes Kouki to work alone to prove his worth to Kaoruko, which drives him practically mad, until Kaoruko steps in and alleviates his stress. Now, if this whole ordeal sounds incredibly pointless, that's because it is, but I want to highlight some things that can make this drama seem even more futile. First, Kaoruko refused the initial offer, and we know that she wants to work only with Kouki. So, why did the company just make this contest without consulting the artist? Because if they did, unless they put peer pressure on her, I think she would have refused, otherwise, well, she's an hypocrite, not that much to say here. Secondly, even if there is a contest, Kaoruko could easily make Kouki win. After all, they know each other's work. I think it would be easy for her to understand whose work it is and make him win. If this is never brought up, that could mean that Kaoruko, the artist, is not one of the judges of the stories, which, again, makes very little sense. She is the one that has to draw the manga. I think her opinion on the story she wants to draw is just a tiny bit important in this whole scenario. And third, I have explained the drama to you, but I am unsure whether what I have actually told you is right. You see, the game makes a mess out of trying to explain what the drama is, So much so that, in my first run of this route, I understood the drama in a completely different way, which also doesn't make any sense. Basically, I thought that the manga artists were angry that an important writer was asking especially for Kaoruko, so they made a contest in order to decide who had to work with it, and Kaoruko decided to enter it because yes, and then the protagonist also decided to enter it because he doesn't want someone else to steal Kaoruko from him. The only problem of this thing is, why the hell would Kaoruko enter this competition? And why would Kouki, a writer, enter a manga contest? I'll be honest, there were some dialogues that made me understand that what I caught from the previous dialogues was wrong, but the simple fact that I actually misunderstood the main plot point of this route says it all about the grade of clearness in its exposition. Still, there are some positives in this route. I think Kaoruko and Kouki have a great chemistry, simply because they share a lot of similarities. First of all, that of being extremely childish, but, well, that is also the only positive of the route. Honestly, I find strange how they butchered Kaoruko's route simply because, by the looks of things, she seems like the main heroine of the whole story and the one that almost gets more space during it, so it is indeed odd that they didn't cure her route at all. Anyways, this was all for the story and the charters. They're extremely mediocre, if not directly appalling, so I don't want to spend any more words on them. I have already said enough already. Because of this, we have only two other things to talk about before wrapping up, and those are the graphics and the sound department. The graphics of this game are okay, but I would actually expect more from a moege, as it literally does the bare minimum to get a passing grade, but doesn't really go beyond that. The scene construction is a normal AVM one, with just sprites that change expression or pose even mid-sentence to convey the feelings of the characters, but there is nothing more than that. No light 2D, no animations, it is just a static scene. The sprites are okay, I've seen better, but all the girls look too much alike, as if the illustrator was able only to do one type of girl and only that, which takes away a lot from a scene when you look at your characters and you see almost the same sprite, just with different hairstyles and eyes colors. As for the backgrounds, they are just generic, like the illustrators made them because they had to and nothing more. You are not going to notice them that much for how backgroundish they are, which could actually mean that they achieved their objective. But I don't know, I think a good background has still to catch the player's attention at least once. Still, the CGs are enjoyable, if not for some perspective problems that arise in some of them, or at least it seems to me like that perspective is a bit wonky in some instances, so judge that by yourself by looking at some of the CGs that are appearing now on screen. Also, other little things that could not be considered that problematic but that I want to talk about because, again, this visual novel costs €49 at list price. The characters are literally for outfits, of which 2 get minked a lot, and those are the casual and the school outfits, while 2 get used only in a single instance, being their swimsuit and mid version. I think they could have done more under this aspect, so to also give more diversity to the events by making something different, but again, we have established that Wagamama High Spec is now trying to do things differently, so this can be forgiven if you're okay with what the game offers you. However, a little I'm not okay with is the GUI that sometimes covers the dialogue when this last one is too long. It is not that hard to spot, and it looks bad on the game. The little details are those that show that care has gone in a product. When you see things like this, you know the people behind it are not giving a damn about the product, or that they were unable to correctly use the engine, or maybe the engine was not that great to begin with. But in any case, this is something that can irk many for how annoying it is, and it is something that should have not happened. As for the soundtrack, the only adjective I have for it is forgettable. All the tracks are extremely plain and not really enjoyable, and I have the sensation that the majority of people are going to turn them off after a bit for how almost mind-numbing they are to listen in the background. Which also goes for the sound effects if someone cares about them. As for the voice acting, it's not that bad, it's just that the material the voice actors had to work with is not the best. They actually try to do something good with it, but their performance is extremely unremarkable and the material given them does not permit them to shine like they could have, which ends up making it feel like the standard voice acting you will find in a 5 out of 10 anime show. Not bad, just forgettable.
それでなるみくんは生徒会室に何の用だったの？まさか本当に覗きに来たなんて言わないでしょうね。じゃあこういう時はお互い様ってことにしよう。私が大変な時は手伝ってね。心配しなくてもお金さえあれば今のご時世よりどりみどり。ああ先輩遅いですよ。で簡単に仕事の説明をしてもらった後部活の予算会議があるとかで言っちゃいましたけど。
I needed 9 hours to finish my first run, comprised of common route and one of the girls' route, and 20 to see every ending this game has to offer, but I'm also a fast reader and I tend not to listen to every single voice line up to the end, so if you take your time slowly reading everything or you want to fully listen to every single line of dialogue, you could easily take up to 30 if not 40 hours to finish everything, though I do not advise you to carefully read everything, as there are some filler or comedic dialogues that add nothing and that you can easily quickly skim through and move on. As for replayability, well, you have 4 routes and nothing more. Once you have finished them, you can toss this game into the finished game stack without having to reopen it ever again. Wagamama High Spec is at best a mediocre visual novel and, at worst, a somewhat appalling experience that only moege enjoyers could keep up with. And maybe not even them would be actually able to do that. There is nothing even remotely remarkable in this game. The story is non-existent and, when it tries to appear, is handled like an high spec car with 3 out of 4 tires flat, the characters are archetypical and do nothing to be even remotely memorable, the rules are all of dubious quality and even the art style and the soundtrack show no sign of a real effort from the developers to actually make a game that can go beyond the generic product it ended up becoming. If you really want to experience the quality of the events of this game, watch the anime, because yes, this visual novel got an anime. It is short, being 12 episodes of 3 minutes each, and it basically shows you the quality of the writing, which is extremely low, and the quality of the characters, which, again, is not that high. I'll be honest, I also wanted to talk about the anime as a little fun fact at the end of this video, but I also think that A, I have had enough of this visual novel for now, and B, this video is already long enough. I don't want to elongate it further by just commenting onto an anime that basically just mixes events from the common route and other events that, guess what, are the same quality as those that are present here. And also C, because the anime is just an advertisement for the visual novel, so if you do not intend to play it, it will just be a waste of time. Watch it if you think that Wagamama High Spec can actually interest you, otherwise you can easily move on and forget about its existence. Anyways, with this I have said everything I wanted to say about Wagamama High Spec, so thank you very much for arriving up to this point. I hope you enjoyed this review, let me know in the comments if you have played Wagamama High Spec and what are your thoughts about it. And with this, I have nothing else to say, so this was all from SigmaOni, and I'll see you all in my next video.